when you're working in a job, you do grow, you do brush up on your skills, but it's always niche in the certain area that the product is going. You can't necessarily explore a ton of things outside of where you're directionally going with whatever product you're working on. So I wanted to explore a little bit. So it was not purely relaxation. It was meant to be 3 months of not looking for a job, but at the same time, maybe working on fun projects, like you say, fun employment.
Layoffs, ghost jobs, AI. These are unprecedented times. Trying to find a job in the professional world, especially the tech sector, has never been harder. It seems the social contracts around job seeking have been all but torn up in pursuit of profits.
At the same time, there are plenty of folks out there finding new careers every day, whether through strong networking, creative approaches to job applications, or just sheer determination. There are those who have gone through the long, difficult job hunt and found success on the other end.
I'm Jason C. McDonald.
And I'm Michael Tharrington. This is On the Board, where we interview everyday people who've successfully landed jobs during the discouraging employment landscape of the last 2 years.
No out-of-touch influencers and dubious pay-to-win schemes here, just real experiences and practical insights.
Hey Ridhwana, it's good to have you with us on the board. And yeah, excited to get going with this interview.
That's really good to be here.
Well, to start off, can you just briefly share your experience of being on the job market and sort of what it was like and how you found your current position?
Yeah, so I think so. My previous company that I was at was Dev.2, also known as Forum. Michael, you and I worked there together for quite a while. So then I think towards 2023, I want to say, yes, 2023, they had a round of layoffs, unfortunately. And I think it was the second round. Eventually, I got laid off from Dev.2. And so I found myself in the job market. I wasn't looking for anything sort of urgently. I was kind of glad to have a little bit of time off from sort of working. Been working for 10 years, so it felt like a nice little break, and I was in a fortunate position to have some savings and just in an okay financial position to be able to take a couple of months off. So I think I got laid off around September, October, and I didn't quite have a timeline, but I'm a very anxious person when I'm not working. I get very restless. So the first month went really well. I was relaxing, I was enjoying myself. The second month I was like, I'm feeling a little bit restless, what to do with myself. I started working on some side projects. But eventually I missed interacting with people. I missed sort of working towards a goal. I missed coding with a purpose. And so I started casually browsing the job market. The job market was really difficult at the time. It was after COVID, and a lot of companies had suddenly opened up remote opportunities. But as someone that's based in South Africa, I have always worked remotely for US companies throughout my career. So I think the first 2 years I worked for a South African company. But then afterwards, it was pretty much US companies working remotely, working with global teams. But suddenly after COVID, because remote work had become more popular, I found that a lot of companies were now only hiring US remote instead of global remote. So I found myself in this sort of disadvantaged position where I was unable to find many companies that were willing to hire globally. So I was casually browsing, and eventually I started diving into Rails a little bit deeper. So I've always worked with Rails throughout my career, but I started diving into the internals of Rails and wanting to understand how that actually works. And I wanted to do more advanced Rails things. And I was casually browsing the documentation, and I was like more interested in sort of getting networked within the Rails ecosystem. And suddenly one day I found myself looking at a job posting for a technical writer for the Rails Foundation. And it was a contract position. I think it was like 10 hours a week or something like that. And I absolutely love writing. I was always like the person at the company that did a lot of documentation, and I used to write blog posts and things like that. So I thought, why not apply and see how it goes? And that was the first contract gig I got during that period. So I started writing for the Rails Foundation. I started updating their Rails guides. Um, but that was sort of just contractor work. I used to do it like maybe an hour or two a day. But eventually I was looking for a software engineering job because that's my primary skills. But I still wanted to continue doing the writing. It was very, very few hours a week. So it meant I could actually do it like in the evenings or on weekends whenever I sort of had the time. So I started looking more seriously, I think, towards 2024, probably around February, March, because I thought after the new year, folks will start hiring again. Um, I I was looking at LinkedIn. I looked at We Work Remotely. I looked at a few other sort of there's a diversity in tech newsletter that I've subscribed to. I did one official interview with the company. I didn't go great. It was my first whiteboard interview in 8 years. And I am not good at whiteboard interviews. I'm much better now, but I think it was the first one. I felt very nervous. I was put on the spot that my skills weren't brushed up in terms of interviewing well. And then I found on LinkedIn, actually, I found Circle, and Circle is my current job. I'm a lead engineer at Circle. And I found them on LinkedIn and I interviewed for them and I got the job. I'll stop there because I feel like I've talked a lot and maybe we can dive into specific areas.
That's great.
My what whiteboard interviews did so did you end up having to do one of those for your current role too, or
No, I
uh,
appreciated that the current role, my interview is more sort of mimicking a real world environment. And that's what I enjoy. I feel like I, because I'm doing a lot of hiring right now as a lead engineer at Circle, I'm hiring for my team. And I try to mimic what a real world environment will look like. So PR reviews, sort of being able to work together on something, or being able to make architectural decisions, trade-offs, risk, but not being put on the spot necessarily to do those things, but having some time to think through them and prepare for them. Of course, in your real environment, real world job, there'll always be times when you're put on the spot and you need to make decisions based on your experience, but there's always also being able to say, I need to do more research into this and understand this a little bit better. So, yes, no whiteboard interviews at Circle.
that's great too. 'Cause sometimes I genuinely wonder what the difference is between some of these some of these interview activities and hazing, because the the last whiteboarding thing I actually got, I thankfully they are becoming more rare. Last one I got, I actually asked the guys like, okay, so I'll do this if you'll tell me the last time you actually used this. I think it was like a linked list or something. It's like, when's the last time you implemented the linked list in this job? He's like, well, I haven't. I said, then why are you asking me to?
Yeah. At this interview, I also, not Circle, the company that I had interviewed before Circle, I had to do the assignment while other engineers were on the call, sort of watching my screen. And again, just very nerve-wracking to have someone
Mhm.
peer over your shoulder all the time. Uh, it was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, that sounds pretty difficult and sounds like it wouldn't really model kind of real world scenarios, like you said. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that you're hiring now and you've kind of taken that experience and used it to sort of as a direction you didn't want to go. You know, like I want to actually model what it's like to be in real world with real world scenarios with folks. So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, getting back to you mentioned you did a little bit of contract work and writing for the Rails Foundation, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Can you talk about sort of? I want to hear a little bit more about that experience, and I'm curious, kind of like how many hours were you able to get in? Were you in control of sort of your own the times that you worked? And do you think it was a good sort of stepping stone or a thing to put on your resume also, you know, to sort of get your foot in the door at other places?
Yeah. So I'm actually still doing documentation writing for the Rails Foundation. I still do it. I sort of do it sometimes in the evenings and on weekends. It's just a few hours a week. I actually just picked it up this month again. Um, I am checking exactly how many hours because I haven't worked on it in forever. So it's like 8 to 10 hours a week.
Nice.
10 hours a week basically. So, I mean, if I do like 2 hours a night or even like an hour and then a few more hours on the weekend, it works out really well. And it's something that I really, really enjoy. I feel like the balance of like doing software engineering at a company and then also doing writing and being able to dive into the Rails code base helps me to be better at my day job. So it's been really good. The experience has been amazing. I work with another writer, and then we have two reviewers. And so what we do is basically the reviewers will audit the guides and see where there's gaps. We'll figure out what documentation isn't covered. We'll talk through if there's any new features being released, we'll try and cover those. We'll go off, we'll write them. It then gets reviewed internally and eventually it goes out to the Rails community for them to review externally as group, and eventually it gets merged. I work with Amanda. Amanda's basically sort of the head of the Rails Foundation, and she's absolutely amazing to work with. I've been to last year, I actually went to Rails World, which was really nice. And going as a technical writer allowed me the opportunity to network with a lot more people that I probably wouldn't have networked with had I not been writing the Rails Foundation documentation. So I think it's opened a lot of opportunities for me, but it's also been just really enjoyable.
You mentioned at the start that right after you found yourself on the job market, you had a bit of a cushion runway, as
Yeah,
it were, and so you were able to take some time and relax. Some people refer to that as fun employment.
yeah.
I mean, you know, you mentioned also, you know, having kind of a hard time relaxing into that because you have to have, and I have the same sort of thing. I have to
Yeah.
have some sort of external motivation because I very quickly run out of that intrinsic motivation. Like I only have so much, and I kind of use it on basics, so I don't have a lot left over. Um, so how did you balance your activities during that time? So that I mean, were you thinking at all about like I have to be able to invest this so that I can find work, or was it kind of like, oh, something will come along, I'm just gonna make the most of this.
So I told my husband at the start, I'm like, I'm going to take 3 months off and I'm not even going to look at the job market. That was the plan to just relax. I also wanted to work on brushing up just my, when you're working in a job, you do grow, you do brush up on your skills, but there's it's always niche in the certain area that the product is going. You can't necessarily explore a ton of things outside of where you're directionally going with whatever product you're working on. So I wanted to explore a little bit. So it was not purely relaxation. It was meant to be 3 months of not looking for a job, but at the same time, maybe working on fun projects, like you say, fun employment. So fun things that I enjoy doing. I built a booking app, like sort of an app where you can book appointments with providers or consultants. Because in South Africa, they just use WhatsApp and or you call them, and I'm like, that was not working when I have to call someone and go like, hey, can I have an appointment? And then they give me all the times, and I have to go back and check my schedule. So I built a booking app. It was really fun. The plan was to actually launch it, but then I ended up with the gig at the Rails Foundation and then Circle, so I didn't actually end up launching it, unfortunately. Maybe one day. But I started playing with Arduinos. I wanted to do a little bit of traveling, so I traveled for a little bit, mostly locally within South Africa. And then I started, even though I had this like a little bit of a cushion and I was fine financially, I just started seeing all the money go out of my bank account, but like there was none coming in. And that really gave me anxiety, even though I knew that like, hey, I was okay. Like, I didn't need to be stressing about it, but that's just the type of person I am. If I'm seeing things go out, nothing's coming in, that's a problem.
An anxiety runs
So,
your night.
Yeah,
yes.
that is
I
anxiety
I
inducing.
I took up running during that time though, and I realized that running is the best thing in the world for me and for my anxiety specifically. So I gained a new hobby during that time, and I actually ran with it like for a very long time. So uh, that's that's one perk. But to answer your question, yeah, it was just like I said 3 months, and I did actually end up. I think it was October, so November, December, January, and February. I started looking for another opportunity. But during that 3 months, it was really difficult. I would browse LinkedIn. I would see the lack of opportunities on LinkedIn, and I would be like stressing about it, but I was trying to remind myself that, you know what, I'm giving myself this time. It's my first time that I don't have a job in like 10 years. So it's okay to just take 3 months if I'm in an okay position to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, after that sort of 3 month period was up, did you have a job in mind that would be like your ideal job? Like, were you searching for just another job where you were working in Rails, a lead engineering sort of position? Did you consider doing stuff like, oh shoot, the word is escaping me right now. Did you consider like writing for different companies or being sort of an evangelist for different companies? What word
I
am I trying
think
to think of?
when I left Dev.2, so I was a senior software engineer at Dev.2 when I joined. But by the time I'd left, and I think I was at Dev.2 for, I want to say 3 years, but 2021 to 2023-ish. So yeah, maybe around 3 years, um, 2 or 3 years. But I had moved into a lead engineering position, and so I was managing a small team. And I realized that that was my calling. Like I loved it. I loved the mix of doing sort of architectural, strategic level things, working with product, working with design, while still being able to code a little bit as well. I'm also super like an organized person and someone that like starts thinking in the future. So I felt like it was a perfect match for me. Um, when I joined Circle, unfortunately, at the time I got sort of a senior position with the sort of with the inclination that when a lead position opens up, I'd move into there. And that's what happened essentially. I joined Circle in June, and a lead position opened up a few months ago. And so I moved into that lead position, and now I'm able to build up my own team and do all the things that I love doing again. And I think that's what like really motivates me. And I'm glad that I think that period off as well, it gave me the opportunity to identify what I enjoyed. Because at some point in like at my time at Forum as well, I was burning out a little bit. And I think you learn things about yourself. You learn what you like doing, what you don't like doing, where your skills are, where your weaknesses are. And I tried to find an opportunity where I could use all of those. So I did apply for some like more like staff engineering position where I wouldn't be managing a team. Um, but I mostly lean towards a lead engineering or engineering manager position because I feel like that's where um, I I would be the most valuable to a company, and also I would feel most fulfilled.
Did you run in at all to the sort of, I don't know, I guess you could sort of call it pigeonholing? But I've run into this. I've been a team lead as well, and I also want to be. I mean, I much prefer managing a team to being an IC, an individual contributor. But I found during my own job search that it's just rejection after rejection after rejection. Finally, got one interview for a management role, and the guy winds up going like, "Well, you don't have enough management experience." I'm like, "I had 10 years. What were you looking for exactly?" I have my questions about what he really meant, but how did you run into any of that sort of, oh no, you're just a coder, sort of pigeonholing? And if so, how did you break out of that box?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I think when I applied for IC role specifically, um, I mean, they're not looking for management. When I applied for lead engineering roles, I think that I didn't really run into that. No, I feel like I referenced my dev experiences, my dev.2 experiences, and I feel like most people were um, what's the right word?
Receptive.
Were sort of yeah receptive to that. Correct. It is almost 10 p.m. here, and so when I'm tired, I start losing my words.
What's my excuse?
I know. The word I was thinking of earlier, and it will be drilled into me, was developer relations, because I feel like you would be great at that as well. You're
That
a great
is
writer.
also that is what I also did search for developer relations
Oh, okay.
opportunities. But it seems like after, again, like during that period of when I got laid off, like developer relations are not as common as they were prior to COVID. It's very few companies have developer relation roles nowadays. Especially because I really like speaking at conferences and things like
Yeah.
that. And I know a lot of developer advocates or relations sort of folks are able to do that as part of their jobs, which would be amazing for me.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I got a question too in regards to your managerial work at Dev, which I remember loads of people like having really awesome things to say about working under you.
Thank you.
And I'm curious, were you, because you mentioned LinkedIn earlier too, did you get any of those people to give you recommendations on LinkedIn or kind of write up things about you? Did you approach people for that sort of stuff?
Yes, a ton. After I left, sorry,
Nope.
after immediately after I got laid off at Dev.2, I reached out to people and asked them, can they please give me recommendations? And I was very I sort of made sure that it was very close thereafter. So like I got laid off, and then like within the next month, I made sure to reach out to all those people because they were still I was still fresh in their minds. They were also looking for opportunities because at the time Dev had laid off like numerous employees. So there was a lot of people that were looking for opportunities. And so it was more like like, hey, are you keen to give me a recommendation? And of course, I'll sort of return that favor for you. And so you giving people recommendations, they giving you. It was like everybody was willing to do it because they were all in that same mindset. Whereas when you let sort of the time pass, people get busy. Like someone asked me to write a recommendation for them just a month ago, and it took me like I think 3 weeks to finally write it. And I'm not proud of that. But I just life gets busy, work gets busy. Once you have a lot of things to do, it just drops down in the priority list. So it's really, I feel like that was really good. And in a lot of my interviews, I actually referenced my recommendations. I would say in the interview specifically, like, I'm really good at this. You can, if you read through my LinkedIn recommendations, you'll notice people place a lot of emphasis on that. And it was mostly like my communication skills, my organization skills, my ability to work with other people. Like those soft skills come like shine through in my LinkedIn recommendations. And so I would very often reference that, hoping people would actually go and read them.
I found for me, incidentally, 'cause I have a few recommendations as well, and I actually found that my callbacks increased significantly when I actually added them to my resume. Like I broke the
It's the
two-page
same.
rule, added a third page, put snippets from the recommendations on there, and suddenly I was getting calls back. It was a weird. It was like it went
Yeah.
from like 100% failure rate to actually getting.
Makes a
I
big
would
difference.
estimate maybe about like a 10-20% chance of getting a call back. It was weird.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I took like two of my most stellar reviews, one from my manager and one other person, and I put it on my resume, and then I had a link there to, or yeah, URL to link back to my to my LinkedIn. Talking about resumes, I had a 13-page resume initially.
Ooh.
And so when I applied to Dev.2, actually, my resume was 13 pages.
Wow.
And I got the job with a 13-page resume. But I
Have you
was
pared
very
it down
quickly,
since?
yeah, so what I did is when I started my job search, I realized that it's not cool to have a 13-page resume. Back in the day, it was, maybe. But not in 2023 or 4. So that was one of the most difficult things I've had to do. And as like a technical writer or just a writer in general, I like that's how I communicate with
Yeah.
lots of words.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my initial resume wasn't even bullet points. It was paragraphs. Because I love writing.
Essays. It was an essay.
Maybe that's how I got the Rails Foundation gig as well.
Yeah. I think you're talking
Um,
to we're two very verbose writers as well, Jason, I believe. So I think
Uh-huh, we both are,
yeah, I
yes.
think you found your people.
Well, and it's the resume length thing is funny anyway because I think your resume shrinks as you gain experience.
Yeah.
Because like I've interviewed a lot of interns over my career and I've seen 5-6 page resumes from interns from college students, and then like as you became more senior, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like at some point you earn that second page. You now have a right to a second page, but it's amazing how many people I know who have more experience than me that don't use it. I think eventually, probably the end point is by the time you're probably, super like Ned Batchelder, um, Guido Van Rossum kind of level experience, you can almost just put "I write code" in 14-point text on the resume and call it good.
oh, that would be awesome.
Hmm.
I couldn't. I just couldn't compress it very easily. So eventually, what I did is I had a little cheat code. So I made my resume. I think it's 2 pages, but then I said, for more information, you can find it
Uh-huh.
on my website, and I put all the text on my website.
QR
That's
code.
good. That's a good balance, and actually a pretty good tip for people who are in a similar boat. Like, you don't have to throw it all away. You can put it elsewhere for
Hmm.
those who are more adventurous and want to read your backstory. You know.
Yeah, it's good to have other things. Like I used to have like all my conference talks, all my sort of I used to run meetups. I used to have all of those in there to show that I'm a well-balanced person. Like I do all these different things. But of course, they can't fit in there. So eventually I just moved all of those things to the website and I would just reference it. I would just say like I enjoy speaking at conferences for a list of my conference talks. See, and I put a link to the website. The same with like I put like, hey, I have run numerous meetups in communities. See on my website. So that's a nice little cheat code if you want to show all the things that you do, but of course you need to put it in a two-pager.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit like a portfolio. My makeup of things that I carry because I'm a community manager. That's my background, and so I end up writing a lot too. I end up writing a cover letter to every place that I apply, and I have my portfolio website and like to fill it up with stuff. I'm curious how you approach the cover letter. Like if you're, because we have interviewed some folks that are more technical who skip the cover letter completely, and others who still rely on it. So I'm just curious if it's something that you do or don't do, or how you approach it.
I love writing cover letters. I feel like a cover letter, my personal opinion is that a cover letter makes you stand out. Companies get hundreds, sometimes if not thousands, of applications. And I'm talking about also from a perspective that I'm now hiring. Like we get thousands of applications, hundreds of applications for a particular job. And I see very few people writing cover letters, unfortunately. But when people do write cover letters, I can kind of just give their CVs a very quick scan, but they telling me, at least my hope in a cover letter is that someone's telling me how their skills relate to the skills that I've put in this, oh, sorry, the skills that this job requires, and also why they'd be a good fit for the company. And I can just like, I can sort of also gather their communication skills from the way that they write. So it gives me a little bit more insight into someone without having to actually start the interview process. So I quite enjoy both writing and reading a cover letter. I know some folks make their cover letters pretty generic, but I like to sort of customize mine a little bit, and it takes a ton of effort and it's very time consuming. But I feel my personal opinion is that it does make a difference. But that just might be my personality as well. Like maybe some people don't read cover letters, I'm not sure.
So, wrapping up here, do you have any other advice you'd like to give to anyone who's still on the job market right now and looking?
I think that I mean the job market is has evolved over the last few years. But I think it's good to network a little bit, to put yourself out there. And if you're not having too much luck in the job market, then try to expand your network. Try to do things that you wouldn't normally be doing. So, for example, I lean into my conference speaking or my enjoyment of creating communities and meetups. And yes, it's a little bit extra work, but it does provide a lot of opportunities for me. When, for instance, you're speaking at conferences, you're more likely to get more open yourself up to more opportunities, to jobs that you potentially wouldn't have otherwise come across or be considered for. So that's sort of, I know it's a little bit specific to me and my journey, but I found that putting yourself out there, networking, and making your work a little bit more visible really helps in the job market search.
That's great advice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks so much for joining us today, Ridhwana. It's great to have you on as a guest.
And thank you. I had so much fun chatting to both of you.
Awesome.